Thank you, Oliver. Was a nice conclusion of the session, and I'm looking forward now to our discussions. And would like to invite first Francisco, if he is with us, to answer a question we received from the audience. And the question we received was that if in your perspective, the Spanish timber industry is ready for your projects, and what are potential bottlenecks to gain the efficiency?
In fact, I have to say that I'm not a very good expert, but first of all, good morning, everyone. I'm not an expert in terms of the timber industry. I have used many times that I have used the wood is because I always consider that it's a fantastic material. It's a material that has been used for ages. So I used the wood just many years ago. So the first time that I used was 35 years ago in my buildings. And in fact, I found then very difficulties, a lot of difficulties. A huge problem just in order to use the wood with warranties. Spain is a country that for many years, the people, the society thought that using the material was very difficult, the maintenance, that they have problems. So, but nowadays, I guess that the evolution of these companies has been really important. I sincerely believe that they are prepared, yes, for using the wood, especially with this idea that Andrew explained very well in relationship with industrialization and just the panels that provide us with enormous possibilities for making just an articulated architecture. Obviously, we have to think that we are living in a global world, which means that many of the advanced and many of the criteria that has been developed in other countries that traditionally has used the wood in a more efficient way, as we could speak about Austria or just Germany or France particularly. All of this knowledge has been translated here, and sincerely, I think that they are prepared. I have to say that many of my work has been working just with carpenters, just with people that work not in big industries, as I explained in my lecture, just in a contextual way, working with people that you can find in a little village, recuperating some tradition that for us are very important in a conceptual terms, architectonical terms. But at the same time, I have to say that our industry, I sincerely believe that they are prepared, yes, for assuming this process of industrialization and using the wood in a more universal way.
Thank you. Maybe to continue, Andrew, you were talking about disassembly. So do you think that the wood industry is ready, or especially with the wood composites materials, are we able to design for disassembly?
Absolutely. I think it's not only are we able to design for disassembly, I think it has to be, a kind of a prerequisite for design process. That you're thinking about not only the present of this building, but the future of this building, how it can be adapted, how it can be, and how the materials, that make up the building can be used afterwards. And certainly, as you say, in the composite industry, timber composite industry, that's very straightforward thing to be able to use the strands from the timber material for composite boards and things like that. But I also think, it's really important to understand one of the major opportunities of timber buildings and their longevity is how we can adapt those buildings as we move on. Very easy to adapt a timber building in comparison to kind of concrete and steel.
Okay. Thank you. We were hearing about this really important project in Paris. So, Mr. Florentin, could you share with us where the wood will be coming from for the village?
Thank you for the question. Perhaps you know that we import timber in France nowadays from Germany and also from Nordic countries. But the objective, the goal of France and France Bois 2024 is to have roughly 50% of French timber. That means that the glass will be quite filled and not quite empty. And for this, we are working in France Bois 2024 to have to follow the timber and the cubic meters coming to the Village Olympique and other buildings. And we are working on traceability, don't know if it is the English word, in order to be sure of the provenance from where the timber will reach. And that's an important heritage that we will want to leave after the games. Perhaps I shall say I had a mistake. I was pre-registered, and I say we had 3,000 square meters in the Village Olympique, but it's 30,000 square meters. Sorry.
No problem, and even more admiring. So I'm very pleased, and I'm looking forward to come see and visit the village. So maybe one of the challenges could be that some would be also designed with the concept of design for reassembling, and maybe we bring one to Slovenia as well afterwards. But I will first now give a question to Oliver, and you were presenting to us how important it is to be exposing us people to nature indoors as well. But would there be also importance of which kind of wood we are using, which type in the built environment? Have you been coming across this in different countries? Which one would be preferable to be used?
Yeah, I think this is a really important question in terms of connecting people to the landscape. A biophilic design isn't just about shoving lots of nature into a space and lots of plants. It is about creating connections to people's personal experiences to elicit a similar physical, psychological, and emotional response. So the more that we can connect people with familiar elements of nature, the more that they can connect with it. So finding local species that they may be familiar with from a cultural or physical context, I think is really important. So looking in the local area, seeing what vernacular materials have been used, and trying to draw those connections, I think is really, really important to enhance that sort of biophilic quality of the space, and really to try and root that building within the local context and to find, in a way, a contemporary vernacular.
Thank you. Then I will challenge all of you with one of very important facts that we are faced in Europe with, and this is aging population. So our designs of built environment of the future need to also be somehow enabling that we will be able to use this built environment also when we are older, and also that the buildings are potentially changing with changing needs of the society. How do you think we are ready for this? Or is the design and buildings architecture already taking this into account with the innovative solutions of the future? Maybe Oliver, you can go first, and we'll continue then to the two other speakers with the same question.
Yes, I think, as I mentioned in my talk, obviously we've got to be considering the carbon impact of the building, but also we've got to want people to love those buildings, to enjoy being in them, to make people feel immediately calm and relaxed and at home, to make them feel like this is a space that can support their physical and emotional needs. The use of timber is a fantastic way of doing that, at immediately being able to put people at ease, at reducing their blood pressure, their heart rates, of improving the sensory qualities from the way the building feels, whether it's a door handle or a piece of furniture, the way the space sounds because of the acoustic quality of the use of timbers. So I think there are many ways that timber can increase the kind of occupant experience and improve quite simply the likability or the pleasure of being in that space. And I think it's important to recognize the role that the enjoyment of a building can bring to its lifespan.
Thank you. Andrew, would you continue?
Yeah, certainly. I completely agree with Oliver. Absolutely right. I think, that we need to be building buildings, we need to be building cities that, that entice and excite and welcome people. And I think that, that timber buildings, the adaptability that's feasible with timber buildings is a really important part of that. I also think the way in which we look at the density of our cities over the next coming decades is also incredibly important. I don't think that we need to be building super tall cities. And I think that, that those sorts of cities, those kind of, buildings, made up of super tall buildings are not the kind of cities that actually are the kind of cities that Oliver's talking about, welcoming, enticing cities. So I think we need to dispel that myth that actually very tall buildings build dense cities. Let's not forget, Paris is about 10 times denser than London and has far fewer of the kind of super tall buildings that London suffers from. So I think that, that adaptability, and also thinking about the nature of our cities and the kind of the daylight, the shadowing, the sunlight in those cities, making them, giving opportunities for everybody to live in those cities is incredibly important.
Thank you. So, Mr. Florentin, the village in Paris that is going to be built, is it already known how it's going to be used after the Olympics?
After the Olympics, we shall have flats. And as I said before, perhaps, Olympic Games are also Para-Olympic Games. And so we are working from the bathroom in order to have showers that are able to have a person with low mobility. So in the Olympic Village, you shall have examples that show that it's possible with timber construction. And I want to print also another example. For example, 4 years ago in FCBA, we had an important demonstrator, which is built in the east of France, with flats that can have people from 50s to 90s. And with timber, it's possible because you can increase the square meters of, for example, the room, and you can decrease the numbers of square meters of the other room, for example, the dining room. And so those type of flexibility, they have been showed in the east of Paris with 10, or I don't remember, or 15 innovations showing that it's possible.
Thank you very much. And before we will conclude this session, since we were seeing so many nice projects, and I am sure that you have in your minds your future dream projects that you would like to do, and do it potentially with timber, but you maybe are missing the property or of a function of timber product to be used in construction. Now is your chance to say it out loud and encourage the wood researchers as well as industry to be developing the products of the future. So, Andrew and Oliver, is there a property you would like to see in wooden product?
I think...
Good question, huh?
Yeah, it's a tough question. It's a good question. I think that the products that we're seeing are really excellent and continue to improve. I think that making the most of the tree that is cut down will become increasingly important. Making sure that we use the kind of as close to 100% of the timber that's cut down as possible. So developing panels, developing manufacturing plants which can make multiple types of panels, making sure that they utilize the whole material, I think will become increasingly important, so that we really value the timber that we grow And I think, that we value, cherish, use that, learn how to reuse it, I think it is really important. And always remember, plant more trees.
Yeah, that was very well put, Andrew. Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult question, isn't it? But and I think increasing the usability and the versatility of timber is really important, making sure that people understand that it's not just a nice thing to have, but that actually it has some tangible financial gain, and making sure that it's not sort of priced out of the market, making sure that, people who are looking at the spreadsheets aren't going, well, we'd use timber, but it's, it's just easier to do it as we've always done it. So making those construction systems easier, more accessible, making them more versatile, and as Andrew's mentioned, making sure that they can allow those materials to become part of the circular economy, to be reused in the future. And I think that level of thinking needs to work all its way down, not just from the kind of prime timber that we may be using in construction, but also in the secondary use when those materials get reused. How can we retain some of those sensory benefits in the wood panel industry, whether that's in the sort of plywoods or the chipboards, OSBs, and the many other sorts of sort of MDFs and sort of things, making sure that they are not just good for the planet in terms of the circular economy, but also that they are also good for people and support physical and mental well-being, so that they don't poison or bring toxins into the home. So, for me, it's really important that we minimize our use of formaldehydes and other finishes that might produce VOCs. So particularly when we reuse timber, making sure that we minimize those toxins to an absolute minimum, and that we create healthy and happy spaces to live and work in.
Thank you very much. So I would like to congratulate you all for your projects, your work, especially to our colleagues in France who are getting a wooden village that we talked about at the beginning. So I would like to encourage more around Europe and beyond that we follow the French example, how we can jointly together with architects, engineers, research environment as well, be strong communicator towards policymakers on the national levels, that they will actually enable us to build these projects also in other countries. With that, I would like to conclude this session, and we will have now a lunch break. I would like to also add that all the presentations will be available online after the conference at the Wood4Bauhaus webpage. And now, after this 1 hour break of a lunch, we will then continue with the last session about circular economy. So thank you once again all for participating in this morning sessions, but I hope to see you and welcome you back in the afternoon as well. Thank you.